If you were to look for God of War Ragnarok's best moment, you wouldn't find it in one of its spectacular combat scenes, in some of its most impressive boss fights, or in its memorable punchlines. Ragnarok is not just a good sequel, improving upon the past entry by reaching new heights in its gameplay and its story. Ragnarok is a good game up until we meet Atreus' gaze, and there, in that moment, the game goes on to become a masterpiece. It's a moment that has been talked about at length, but for the wrong reasons. Of course, as I am about to analyze and explain the scene in great details, spoilers are coming up, because that moment appears at the end of the game, and it's a climax that actually doesn't feel like one. To be frank, I was even disappointed by the events that led up to it. That is, by the fact that the character dying in Atreus' arms, as prophesied by the murals we can see in the 2018 game, is not Kratos, but Odin. At first, I thought that it was a cheap way to ensure players have a happy ending, and can continue playing and finish side quests after the credits roll. But again, the last scene of the game changed everything, and I'd like to shed new light on it. So what do we see here? Atreus joins Kratos after having defeated Odin and after Asgard got destroyed by Ragnarok, and they reveal a new mural, one hidden by Faye in order to help her husband and her son free themselves from their fate so they can forge their own path. What follows is the most important moment. Atreus explains that the giants are still out there and need his help, but that is something he has to do alone. Despite his sadness, Kratos understands. He understands that this is the best that can happen to his son, that the thing Atreus is the most afraid of doing is the one he has to embrace. To put it briefly, Atreus has to go. He has to live and write his own story. Of course, that could be it, and we could understand that scene as poignant goodbyes between a son and his father. And yet, there is much more to this than meets the eye, because saying goodbye is part and parcel of accepting to forge a new path unbound by fate. If Kratos had died as it was supposedly prophesied in the previous game, then both father and son would have been victims of fatality, of something inescapable they had to face. But separation is something else, as Atreus unties himself from his father, not because the latter died and detachment is then imposed on him. Atreus has to choose between staying or leaving, and the existence of that choice makes it all the more significant. Because of Kratos' survival despite the odds, Atreus' departure acquires another layer of meaning, one that transforms separation from an unavoidable event to a conscious and deliberate act, in the same way both characters escape fatality in favor of freedom. In other words, Kratos' escape from death pays off, because it gives Atreus the opportunity to choose, to strive for independence and autonomy. The freedom he gains can only be measured by what he's leaving behind. His choice is possible and makes sense because of his father's continuous presence. So when Atreus turns to him one last time before marching on, the game acknowledges an imperative. A good parental figure is one that learns to let go of what it treasures the most, that learns to say goodbye because it is the last gift a parent can give to their child. The last lessons about life lie out there, in the dangers and obstacles a child has to face by themselves. Freya helped Atreus in that regard by impeding destiny to interfere with her son's choices, while it took a longer time for Kratos to do the same thing. Several times throughout the game, we see Kratos refusing to let Atreus be on his own and chart his own path, out of fear that he might get injured. Atreus'S independence is a core aspect of the narration, so much so that we not only see him sneaking away several times, we also control him, which makes him an independent character by default. The question is not to know if Atreus is autonomous or not, since we can clearly see that right at the beginning of the game, but more so if Kratos is willing to let go. The last scene, then, shows Kratos' progress. If anything, Atreus' self-determination casts a light on Kratos' growth. The courage it took a father to let go of his son is tied to the next crucial moment of the scene, that is, the revealing of Kratos as a rebuilder, a benevolent figure loved and respected by many, and no longer a harbinger of destruction. Kratos' redemption is possible because to rebuild implies letting go of what was in the past to start anew. Rebuilding requires accepting that what was once is no more, that things cannot be the way they were, and that to go forward necessitates a fresh start. Nothing can be brought back from the devastation that wrecked most of the Norse realms, and all that can be done is to build again, to build on top of what was there before, to build in spite of that loss. The same goes for Atreus. He is no longer the boy he used to be, and to acknowledge his need to be emancipated is to recognize that nothing will bring back that boy, because he is a man now, carving his own story. It is no coincidence that Kratos' last words, before the credits roll, are,
"There is much to do, much to rebuild." Would you join me?
First, these words underline the central theme of rebuilding, of doing deeds for others, which the game pushed for by having many side quests focused on helping others and trying to set things right. As we see throughout the game, nothing can bring back what was lost, but to rebuild makes it possible to go ahead while respecting and acknowledging what is no more. Second, Kratos ends by asking a question to Freya and Mimir. His question is not a mere detail, since it is not a command, but a choice he gives to them. Kratos, once again, lets go of control just like he did with Atreus, and by doing so, respects the autonomy of the people around him. His evolution is also palpable when compared to Sindri's. We learn in-game that the latter defied his brother's death and revived him even though his soul was missing. Sindri is devoured by guilt for having done this, and not having said anything to his brother about it. But when Brock dies again, and Sindri loses him a second time, he still cannot let go despite his brother explaining that it is time for him to die, that he needs to leave and already needed to do so the first time he passed away. But Sindri, like Kratos in the past, seeks devastation and vengeance. The optional scene that follows the game's ending presents Brock's funeral. There, we can see Kratos reaching out, wanting to help, and thus breaking the silence that was his predominant characteristic not too long ago. Sindri, on the other hand, is the one now falling into silence, given that he closes himself to the world and succumbs to anger. And while his anger is understandable, for the loss he endures is immeasurable, this is the second time Sindri has to embrace that loss, and this is the second time he refuses to make peace with it. There is another important moment in the game, a detail, a small dialogue with a few sentences, when Brock, after having retrieved the Dropnir spear for Kratos, tells him that,
"See? Dwarven magic's all about the intangibles. The relationship between the stuff what you can touch and what you can't. It's about understanding.
Understanding what?
The nature of a thing's more important than the form of a thing."
The same goes for the last goodbye of the game. If we look at the form, we see that Kratos and Atreus are still alive, and the looming threat of fate is finally extinguished. But the nature, the intangible of the scene asks of us to see it differently. Its meaning lies in what cannot be fully seen, that is, in the pain one suffers from letting the other go. That pain is visceral because it lies in the acceptance of the fact that, between two alternatives, the best one is not the one we want. The deliberate act of parting ways with the ones we love carries a special weight that never leaves us, which is why Atreus, as Kratos puts it himself, stays here with him, while Loki goes. Loki, in this instance, is not a mythological figure from Norse mythology, but the identity chosen by a child who knows who he is now and what he wants. Kratos carries with him the remaining shell of a boy who matured and who now needs to go. And it is a separation that the player has to face too, for they will need to continue playing without Atreus by their side. They will need to continue playing after letting him go. If Ragnarok shows us the most bombastic scenes and fights video games can offer, all the lightning strikes Thor may cast do not measure up to a simpler and yet more touching moment between a parent and a child. A powerful moment because it shows the necessary pain that comes with letting go of what we hold the most dear. In Atreus' gaze alone resides the end of a chapter and the beginning of a new one, from a tangible embrace to embracing the intangible.